All right, so we're going to do Bible study. This is about Jesus' relationship to his father, Abba. I call him Abba because it's a better word for me. It's Hebrew, that means daddy. Okay, so, because I feel like a lot of times, you know, when Jesus says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you, a lot of times we don't find comfort in that because we're like, oh, wow, that's great. He just let you go to the cross and just like be beaten and beyond recognition and, oh, he loves me, huh? Like, I feel like people, like, they don't come out and say that, but I feel like people are thinking that in their head. Like, oh, I don't know if I want to be loved like that. And also a lot of people get the impression that Jesus was murdered, which is not true at all. So we're going to talk about all of that. Because like Joseph Prince was talking about how he went and saw The Passion, which is probably the best movie that's ever been done about it. And he came out and he was just like, oh, wow. And then he heard these other people come out behind him and they said, terrible what those people did to Jesus. And he was like, wow, they just missed the whole point. They just watched that whole movie. And that's what they came out with. So I'm going to show you a bunch of scriptures here. Let's see, we're going to start with I think we should start with Revelation 13:8. And it just says, well, it just mentions that, okay, so all those dwelling in the earth will worship the beast. Excuse me. Those whose name was not written in the scroll of life of the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world. So it's talking about how Jesus was like, so what Jesus did for us on the cross was the crux of all history. But they had that plan before the foundation of the world, before they ever made anything. God, like the Father and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, they had this plan. This was already planned out. And it wasn't like they forced it on Jesus or something like that. Like, he chose it. Like, he was in agreement with it. And so I want to show you some different things here in John. Starting in chapter 10. And this is 17 and 18. It says, for this reason my Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I can take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down from myself. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. I received this commandment from my Father. And then in John 17:24, it says, I want those who you have given to me, that where I am, they also may be with me, so they can behold the glory that you gave me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. So going back to, so he's saying the Father loves me because I lay down my life and I pick it up again, but he loved me before the foundation of the world. So before I did this, he loved me. So, and then 14:31. So in 14:31 it says, but so that the world may know that I love the Father, even as the Father has commanded me, so I do. So he's going through this with this plan so that the world will know that he loves the Father. So the Father loves him, he loves the Father, and that's why they're doing this, because they're in agreement about what they're doing. They feel like it's worth it. And so then, okay, so now John 18:4-9. Then knowing all the things coming upon him, going out, Jesus said to them, so he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's talking to the big crowd that came to arrest him. Jesus went out and said to them, "Who are you looking for?" They answered him, "Jesus, the Nazarene." Jesus said to them, "I am." And Judas, the one betraying him, also stood with them. Then when he said to them, "I am," they depart. So he doesn't really have language for this, but basically what happens is like the force of him saying "I am" just pushed them back. It says they went backwards and fell to the ground. So he just said "I am," and they all fell down. He had to stand there and wait for them to get up again and arrest him. Then again he said, "Who are you looking for?" And they said, "Jesus, the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am. Then if you're looking for me, let these ones leave." So that the word would be fulfilled that he said, "Of those whom you gave to me, I didn't lose any of them." So he had so much power that he could say, "Just take me and let all these guys go." And that's what they did. Like, they could have arrested everyone, but they just took him.
I'm just surprised it doesn't say, like, none of those people stop. Like, after they just got pushed to the
ground. They're like,
I don't get it.
Maybe this isn't a good idea.
Yeah,
like,
no one says that? Or?
No. They're like, well, these are the orders, so we gotta carry them out.
What do you mean?
I know, it's crazy. And then
you just got pushed away by an invisible force.
Right. You're just gonna get up and just try it again. Just if at first you don't succeed. Then Matthew 26, 51 to 54. Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is good too. So that says, and look, one of those with Jesus stretching out the hand drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and took off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, and we know from other accounts it was Peter, Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, because all who take the sword will die by the sword. Or do you think that I am not able now to call on my Father, and he would place beside me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that it has to happen this way?" So there's another example of, like, he had the power. At any point he could have backed out if he needed to or wanted to, but he's like, okay, we're going to push through this now because we've been waiting for thousands of years to do this. 27:34, Matthew 27:34. Oh, so now he's hanging on the cross, and they're giving him vinegar mingled with gall to drink, which is their version of like an anesthetic or something to take, dull the pain or whatever. But when he tasted it, he wouldn't drink it. He wouldn't drink it because he was like, I have to stay sober so that I don't give in to the temptation to call angels come take me off this cross, like I got to carry through with this, so I got to stay in control of my mind. And so he wouldn't take the painkiller, basically. It was kind of almost like an alcohol because the vinegar was made from wine or whatever. And then Matthew 27:46. Okay, so here's a thing that people are often confused by. About the 9th hour, which is 3:00 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out with a loud voice saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which is, my God, why have you abandoned me?" So people think that he was, feeling abandoned or whatever like that. But actually, he was actually quoting from Psalm 22:1, which was apparently something that the rabbis did, like when they wanted so the Jews studied the Old Testament from 6 years old to 12 years old or something like that. Every boy studied the Bible, so they knew it. And so the rabbis would just continue from 12 to 30 with their studies. And then, but everybody knew the scriptures. And so what the rabbis would do is, if they wanted their disciples to think of a scripture passage, they would just quote the first line, and their disciples were expected to remember the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was doing here. Not that it wasn't an angsty experience for him right then, because he was taking all the condemnation and all the wrath of God, and taking it all in his body and consuming it and everything. And that's when he was saying that. But he wanted his disciples to remember this. So we're going to kind of look at Psalm 22 here real quick, because this is a messianic psalm. But it starts out, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why have you forsaken me? And I think why he was saying that, well, this is a few hours later, but right before that, the Pharisees, they were like speaking ill of him and saying, you destroying the temple and building it in 3 days. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross. The chief priests and the scribes and the elders were mocking him in the same way. He saved others, he's not able to save himself. If he's the King of Israel, let him come down now from the cross and we'll believe in him. Of course they wouldn't have, but they're just saying stuff. And then, this is what they said, he trusted on God, let him rescue him now if he desires him. For he said, I am Son of God. These are the exact words in Psalm 22:8, like exactly the same words. Psalm 22:8, he trusted on Yahweh, let him deliver him, let him rescue him since he delights in him, or if he delights in him. And they didn't seem to make the connection. Those are the exact words that and this is such a messianic psalm. Like it says, also, you appoint me to the dust of death, for dogs have encircled me, a band of spoilers have hemmed me in, piercers of my hands and feet. Which, this was not, the crucifixion was a Roman thing. They didn't have that kind of death back then. So, like, piercers of my hands and feet, like, that was really specific. I count all my bones, they look, they stare at me, they divide my garments among them, and they cast lots for my clothing. Like, that's exactly what they were doing when he was hanging on the cross. And I'm sure he saw a lot of his bones after they did all of that to him with the whip that shredded him to smithereens. So I'm sure he did count all his bones.
What psalm? Was that the same psalm as the other one you said? My God.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm 22?
Yeah, this is all Psalm 22. Yeah. So, yes, I'm sure he was in agony, but he was trying to tell his disciples something, which they pretty much missed because it was just crazy. Well, John was the only one that was there, but like there was other people there that would have known what Psalm 22 says, obviously all the chief priests and stuff. John was the only disciple that was there. Like, he had a bunch of women there, but they didn't generally study all that stuff. Women weren't as educated as the boys.
So you don't think like you think he was just repeating a psalm and not actually saying that God?
Yeah, he was quoting the first line of that psalm, probably for John's benefit, I would guess. Because remember, John was the only one. When they went to the tomb and found it empty, like Peter went in and he was like, what the heck? But John, when he went in, it says he saw and he believed. So like he understood more than the other disciples. And he was there, so I'm sure he was saying that for his benefit because he was standing right there. And he was the only one of the 12 that was there. Not to say that it wasn't agonizing, but the point of him saying that, like, everyone missed the point completely, but except maybe John, because he was probably saying it for him. Okay, now Isaiah 53, 10 to 12. So you know about Isaiah, right? Isaiah 53. It's another super messianic prophecy. In fact, I hear that the Jews don't ever read that. Like, it's kind of forbidden.
Yeah.
And if you ever show it to them, they'll be like, oh, this is a Christian writing. you're like, no, this is out of your Bible.
Yeah.
But it's very specific. It's very okay, now I was going to read 10 to 12. But Yahweh was pleased to crush him, to make him sick, so that if he should put his soul as a guilt offering, he will see his seed, or his descendants, his posterity. He will prolong his days, and the will of Yahweh will prosper in his hand. He will see the result of the travail of his soul, and he will be fully satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Because of this I will divide to him with the great, and with the strong he will divide the spoil, because he poured out his soul to death, and he was counted with transgressors, and he carried the sin of many and made intercession for transgressors. So, here's where God is talking about that there's a reward for what Jesus did. Like it says he sees the reward of his suffering and he's satisfied. And so here's another thing where you can see, like, God wasn't just doing something mean to him. Like, Jesus wanted what was on the other side of that experience. And that was something that was carrying him through, as you can see in Hebrews 12, 2 and 3. Looking to the author and finisher of our faith, Jesus, who because of the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, so you don't grow weary and give up in your souls. So it's like, you probably can't relate to this being a guy, but maybe you can imagine it is like when a woman is having a baby and it's really painful and it's really long and it's really hard, but she's thinking about the baby that she's going to get at the end of the experience, and that it's going to be all worth it because a new life and all that a baby is, And so it's kind of that same thing. I don't know what would relate to a guy, maybe, I don't even know. But where he was going through something really terrible, but he was thinking about the final result that he would get out of it. And he was in full agreement with the Father about the whole thing. Like, from the foundation of the world, he was in full agreement. Yeah. And the only reason why it was so awful in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was struggling is because he knew it was going to be really awful. It was going to be really hard. And, you can imagine it was awful. But he really wanted what was on the other side of that. And that was what was pulling him through. And it says that he endured the cross, despising the shame. And that word for despising, like in the Hebrew mindset, it's like to make light of something. So what's basically happening is that what he is going to get on the other side is way heavier to him than the suffering that he's going through right now. And basically that's the same thing that Paul said, like, what it was, I can't find an English word, but they use the word consider. I consider that the suffering that I'm going through now is not even worthy to be compared to the glory that will be revealed in us. Like, and so it's the same thing for us. Like, and Paul, he went through a lot of suffering. Like, he carried a lot of that persecution and everything, but he's saying, like, this is a small thing compared to what, like, the reward is going to be or whatever. So that's what he was going through too. Like, he just was like, I don't care about this because I'm going to have something so good afterwards. Like, that's how he feels about us, like, that we're worth all of that. Yeah, it's kind of amazing, really. And then, so then, like, the Bible does talk about his rewards, kind of. Jude 1:24 says, now to him being able to keep you without stumbling and to set you before his glory without blemish, with unspeakable joy. So like when he gets to the end and we all get through and he's able to like present us to himself like perfect because of what he did for us, then unspeakable joy, like, I mean, can you imagine that? Like, that he's so happy that he can't even talk. Because that's just something that he really, really wants. And then, like this in Zephaniah 3:17, it says, Yahweh, your God, is mighty among you. He will save. He will rejoice over you with joy. He is silent in his love. He rejoices over you with a joyful shout. So I looked up a bunch of those words. Like, he's bright and cheerful over you. He rests in his love, or he's silent in his love, or even he's devising in his love, like he's planning things in his affection for you. And then that last one, he rejoices over you with a joyful shout, actually means he spins around. He spins around over you with a shout of joy. Like, it's really a cool picture of like God being joyful. And that's something that we don't often think about, him being really joyful in us. And then I'm just gonna show you a few last things here. Psalm 147. Yahweh takes pleasure in those who are in awe of him, in those who expect his loving kindness. That's what makes him happy. When we are in awe of him and we expect his favor and his loving kindness. And I like these psalms right before it, 145 and 146. Like, they paint a really beautiful picture of like how God is. Like, I will muse on the glorious honor of your majesty and the things of your wonderful works. And they shall speak of the might of your awesome works, and I will declare your greatness. They will express the memory of your great goodness, and they will sing of your righteousness. Yahweh is gracious, he's full of favor, and he's full of compassion. He has a long fuse, and he is of great compassion and mercy. Yahweh is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. All your works will thank you, Yahweh, and your saints will bless you. They will speak of the glory of your kingdom and talk of your might, to make your might known to the sons of men. Yes, the glorious majesty of his kingdom. And he upholds all who fall and raises up those who are bowed down. The eyes of everyone hopes to you, and you give them their food in due time. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. Yahweh is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his works. He is near to those who call on him, to all those who call on him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of the ones who fear him. He will hear their cry and save them. He watches over all who love him, but he destroys all the wicked. And then he executes justice for the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. He sets free the prisoners, opens the eyes of the blind, raises up those who are bowed down. He loves the righteous. He watches over foreigners. He relieves the orphan and widows, but he warps the way of the wicked. Yeah. And 149:4. Yahweh takes pleasure in his people. He beautifies the downtrodden with salvation or rescue. So I'm going to stop this here.